interesting.
All right, I'm turning up my volume. Can you hear me? Paola, you want to pause the recording until we actually call the meeting to order? I always feel a little silly having a recording of, hi, how are you? Can you hear me? Blah, blah, blah. Hi, Danny. Nobles. Getting a little long in I like it. You're on mute.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes,
You can hear me now.
I can hear you now.
All right, cool. Hello.
Hello, hi, Sally. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4. We do not yet have quorum. Oh, yes, we do.
Nice.
Naima is in the house, so we now have quorum. I'm going to give it a couple minutes though, since it's only 6:31.
Hi, everyone. Good evening.
Good evening.
Everyone's hair is longer than the last time I saw it, except for Wayne, who has no hair, and
He's like, hold on now. Hold on.
and Danny, who I happened to have seen a couple of days ago.
Is that Art Man Dan right there?
It is.
Yeah, I was like, I know you. Yes, it is. I was like, looking,
Nobles,
so I was
I see what's happening here. I like that for the
Yeah,
culture.
I had to throw some
Yes.
grays on him.
Alexis got the what do you call that accent? The accent accessory right there.
I like it.
You're on mute, Alexis.
You're
Oh
on mute,
no.
Alexis. Okay. Hello, Derek. Wait. Are you Derek or are you John? You're on mute.
yeah.
Sorry, I'm John Krawchuk with the Historic House Trust. I'll be
Got
joining tonight to do the
That's what I thought.
presentation. Hello.
All right, you might want to change your name though. Otherwise, we're all just going to be calling you Derek.
Okay.
Hi, John.
Hello.
How are you?
How are you, Alexis? Good to see you.
Good to see
Long
you.
time. Long time.
I know. You're looking good, kiddo.
Thank you. I'll see if I can rename. I'm going to do this right now. I've never done it before, but I'm figuring this out.
Oh, actually, I can rename you. Aha,
Oh, there we go.
the power
There
of
we
the
go.
co-host.
That was very easy.
Okay, great. When I'm on family Zooms with my kids, my daughter likes renaming us funny things. She has, being my child, she has a quirky sense of humor. So, okay.
I can take minutes if you'd like.
Well, Alexis said she would take minutes, so I'm happy for either of you to do that. I think who did it?
I think I did July's.
Right, that
Yeah.
sounds about right.
Yeah.
Okay, so Alexis is on tap for taking minutes. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Alexis.
You're welcome.
I am going to call this meeting to order at 6:33. Welcome everyone to the Parks and Cultural Affairs Committee. I am decaffeinating myself for Yom Kippur so that I don't get a caffeine withdrawal headache when I fast. I mention this only to tell you that I'm exhausted. So if I start falling asleep in the middle of the meeting, it's because I'm terribly under-caffeinated. Welcome back, everybody. I hope everybody had a good summer. It was so nice to have like this brief break from COVID when everybody was vaccinated and we could do stuff. And then all of a sudden the wheels totally fell off that wagon, and here we are. So if I seem cranky, that's why. We've had some changes in personnel. Our Assistant Chair, Daryl Cochrane, is now the chair of the Health and Human Services Committee, which is, great for that committee and for the board and for the executive committee, but a bummer for us because, he may try and come to some meetings, but it's a lot of work to chair a committee, and it's hard to consistently attend another committee in addition to the one that you're chairing and the executive. So in absentia, thanks to Daryl. And similarly, Francisco is no longer on the committee because he is now chairing the Business Development Committee. That does, however, mean that Nobles Crawford is now the assistant chair of this committee. Yay. So
Honored.
I appreciate all you have done and
Liz,
to what you will continue to do. Yes.
Liz, it seems that a lot of chairs are coming out of this committee. It's like a playground.
I like to think that they're learning from my leadership style, or maybe they're just running away screaming and the only way they can do it is become chair. I don't know, but thank you for that. I also want to welcome our newest member, Danny Bonilla, Artman Dan. Not to put you too much on the spot, but you want to just talk a little bit, take a minute to just talk a little bit about why you wanted to be on the board and why you wanted to be on this committee. And tell us who you are, for those who don't know.
Cool. For those who don't know me, my name is Daniel Bonilla. Hopefully everyone can hear me well. I have like 20 things happening back here. My name is Daniel Bonilla, aka Artman Dan. I decided to join the board last year in after like all the protests and like what was happening during COVID and all that stuff. So I kind of saw I wanted to represent my community, so I decided to join, and here I am. And this was one of the first committees that I actually wanted to join. I'm on this one, and I am on youth and education. So thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here and to see if we can all make a difference and to learn from everyone here, because I'm new.
Thank you. And
Welcome.
for those who don't realize, that fantastic mural in the background is the mural that is one of the many murals along Dyckman Street that Danny brought to us. So that is his work. And it's one of the many reasons why I'm super excited to have him on this committee. So a couple.
Daryl is here. Daryl is here.
Yes, here is Daryl. Yay. So happy you can join us.
Of course, hello.
Yes, a few updates. Friends of the Fort Tryon Park Trust had a big cleanup over the weekend. We did lots of work along the Broadway berm, taking out lots of invasives. My butt and my legs are killing me from a lot of stooping and bending over, but it was really satisfying work. And I encourage all of you to take the opportunity to join in some of the park stewardship days in various parks around the community when they happen. Also in Fort Tryon Park on Saturday, there was a lovely ceremony, commemorative ceremony for the 20th anniversary of 9/11. And there's a temporary art installation that's really worth checking out. It'll be there for another week and a half or so. It's a wonderful installation by Marta Blair, done with very colorful gaffer's tape. Really has to be seen to be fully appreciated. Danny, you should definitely check it out if you haven't. It's along the walkway, the Western walkway, just near the cafe lawn as you're walking through the park. It's really lovely. The Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment is sponsoring an event from September 29th to October 3rd off Broadway in the Burroughs Fest. which consists of free outdoor performances of Winnie the Pooh, Stomp, the Gazillion Bubbles show. There's music, there's circus, there's all kinds of stuff going on. There's one location in each borough, and the Manhattan location is going to be at the Dyckman Plaza, the Cascaya Plaza, Dyckman Street at Payson Avenue, bordering on Inwood Hill Park. Which, you know what, it might actually not be in Cascaya Plaza. It might be, it might actually be in the area of the park that's just to the west of the, just to the west of the Payson playground. But I think that once you get to that general area, it'll be pretty obvious where it is. So that's going to be Friday, October 10th from 3 to 5. I have a flyer in English and I'm just waiting on a Spanish flyer. And as soon as I get that, that will be sent out to the committee and to the public from the board office. Next up, I was briefly in touch with the Parks Department's Office of Concessions, and there's no news on the New Leaf Cafe. It's a, you know, it's a pretty lengthy process. It's going through what it's going through, and I just wanted to let everybody know that, as my mother used to say, no news is no news. And as soon as there is news, they will share it with us, and I will share it with you. In terms of the agenda, there's no update on parks renamings, other than to add that some of you may have seen on Facebook, there is a petition being circulated to rename the Isham Alley for Maria Lal, the beloved community gardener who spent, I don't know, 25 hours a day, 8 days a week doing work in that area and really beautifully contributing to Isham Park. Parks Department is working with Volunteers for Isham Park and with Maria's family on a tree planting and on a memorial event. So more news about that when we have it. And in terms of any kind of a renaming, as we know, Parks generally does not do namings, memorial namings until a person has been dead for 3 years. So I'm sure that her name will be, you know, certainly considered in its time. And in the meanwhile, there are many ways that we can honor her contributions to the park. Ann Loftus Playground construction, as anybody who has walked past that playground can see, it's now fenced off. Construction has begun. There has been some question about the placement of the construction fencing on the Broadway side such that the benches are inside the fence and not available for seating. Parks Department is working with the contractor to figure out if there's a way to move the fence. There are some issues with, you know, making sure to preserve the safety of the site and make sure that even with fencing, there isn't access to the site, that people aren't going to like climb over the fence, but there may be able to be something that can be done so that we can still have at least some of the benches. That is in process. Update as soon as I have it. Other updates. As we had discussed at our last meeting, I'll be testifying next week at the Public Design Commission regarding the Row New York design for their new, not field house, row house. Just looking at my notes, it's a fairly long list of updates because it was a long summer. Yes, it was a very long summer where I didn't do a whole lot of community board business, including the June and July minutes. I apologize. I will get them to you as soon as I can. I was going to say I haven't forgotten about them, but I actually kind of did, which is why I don't have them. And I apologize for that. It's Yom Kippur. What can I say? I'm sorry. I think that's it for updates. Oh, and in terms of the agenda, Harlem River Community Rowing presentation has been deferred to our November meeting at their request. And our presenter for the Dykeman Farmhouse and the Morris Jamel Mansion is going to be John Krawchuk rather than Derek Durand.
Dan Durant.
Dan Durand, because, and I feel like I really have to say something publicly because it's just so ridiculous. Anybody who's been paying attention to the media knows that Mayor de Blasio has been very serious about making sure that everybody, all the city workers, return to work, as if during the entirety of COVID, all of you hadn't all been working really hard from home. This has been very narrowly construed to mean that work can only be done from home. For all of the many city employees whose workday includes evening meetings on Zoom like this one, the idea that the mayor's very narrow interpretation of what a workday looks like means that city employees who are staffing Zoom meetings from home, Zoom meetings have to do it in the office, which, you know, if your workday doesn't happen to include those hours, that's just stupid. There's no kind word for it. So I want to just state publicly that I think that that is a stupid policy of the mayor's. It makes me extremely angry. It gets in the way of efficient conducting of city business. As a taxpayer, it annoys me. And I'm going to stop talking about that because I'm just making myself annoyed. But feel free.
Ms. Ritter, could I actually add to your comment? Would you mind?
Sure.
If you don't mind, I'd love an opportunity just to address it because I know that it sort of was something that sort of like obviously resulted in a little bit of a shift, but city workers, as all of you know, have just recently been called back as of yesterday to full-time work. And there wasn't a lot of notice. We had about 2 weeks notice. But I think as a result, a lot of things that we got used to not really working with systems that have been in place that were, you know, pre-COVID, like attending a meeting in person, are now slightly different. And so a lot of these policies are being clarified by City Hall. And so it's my understanding that, you know, clearly we're all trying to respond. Everyone's just coming back to work and kind of getting back to their schedules. But that is something that has been clarified, you know, that there will be the opportunity for Parks Department employees who do attend a lot of community board meetings to present on various topics, including capital projects. But that has been clarified that will be permitted in some form or fashion. So I just want to make sure that it's been clarified. It's an ongoing conversation. It's not just to stop. Absolutely not at this point. And so here I am to actually present to you tonight, not that wouldn't have happened regardless, but we wanted to be sure that the information on Jamel and Dykeman got out today. So that's all I wanted to say.
Great. I appreciate that because I was getting ready to just roll on down to Gracie Mansion and give the mayor a whatever size piece of my mind I could spare. Okay, so I'd like to move the agenda, but I see Sally's hand up. So if you want, I see a couple hands up. So Sally, then Daryl, then Natalie.
Yes, with regard to the Maria Law alley, that's not a DOT street. So is that something that?
That is correct. That is why I made an announcement about it in the Parks Committee.
Right. So my question is that something renaming an alley that could be considered by the Parks Department?
So as I said, the Parks Department is happy to consider renamings and they will do it after a person has been dead for 3 years. That is why I made that announcement.
Hey, I didn't realize the 3-year thing was also Parks.
Yep. Okey doke. Next up, Daryl.
No, it was just a follow up on your earlier comment. I believe city employees can take evening meetings at home. It may depend on the agency and the type of meeting you're having, but just FYI.
Yeah.
But still feel free to go down to Gracie Mansion if you like, because I support that.
You got it. Thank you. And somebody else had a hand up. Natalie?
Yes, Liz, I just want to say something that this is Natalie from your community board coordinator and cultural affairs specialist from the Manhattan Borough President's Office. And very welcome to new members in the panelists and in the peanut gallery. Welcome back to all board members. And just a quick thing, support local, your city employee friends by just really being clear on terminology. Return to work full time. These are slips, I think, but they don't apply to a lot of us. It's return to the office. So call it RTO, call it return to main work site, whatever it's going to be. But I promise you, my agency, nobody got furloughed, nobody stopped working for the entire last 18 months.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Okay, so with that, it's 6:50 and we can move to brief programming updates from cultural organizations and Friends of Parks organizations. We'll do this in the order that I see hands up. I'm going to, do you mind being timekeeper, Nobles?
Indubitably, let's do it.
Excellent. So first up, so everybody's gonna get 2 minutes. We have a pretty tight agenda, so I'm gonna ask people to please stick to the 2 minutes. Gonna ask Nobles to set his timer for 1 minute and 45 seconds, so that when the timer goes up, that is your cue to wrap up in 15 seconds or less. And first up, we have Alexander Campos from the Hispanic Society. You're on mute. Oh, wait. Allow to talk, my bad.
Sorry, you have to unmute me. Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome back, I guess, for the little lazy month of August, which was quite busy. Very quickly, we have 3 main events coming up, and I want to share those with you. This Saturday, September 18th, from 4 to 6, we have Hispanic Heritage Family Day with music and art making projects, as well as refreshments. Everybody's welcome to come in. I sent Liz a flyer earlier, but I don't think I could post it in this. So hopefully you got it, Liz, and you can share it with the rest of the community board. And everybody's welcome. So please get the word out. It's this Saturday, 4 to 6. Secondly, we are opening a exhibition on October 15th. It's called Gilded Figures, Wood and Clay Made Flesh. And it's going to feature Baroque sculpture from both sides of the Atlantic, from the Iberian Peninsula and Latin America, all from the 1550 to the 1730s. Of course, it starts Friday, October 15th. Anybody is welcome. We're going to be open Thursday to Sunday, 12 to 6. That's going to be our hours for this fall. Thursday to Sunday, 12 to 6. And lastly, we have an exhibition opening up in the Grolier Club, which is on East 60th Street. It's going to feature 100 objects from our library, rare books and manuscripts. And the Grolier Club is open Monday through Friday, 10 to 5. And you're welcome to visit that. That opens to the public on September 29th. Again, please see the exhibitions, come to the exhibition, come to Family Day. We are also doing many workshops or videos about Hispanic Heritage Month online. It's going to be through our website. It'll be eBlast. So subscribe to our eBlast or go to our website and you'll find a page on Hispanic Heritage Month activities. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Alex, could you repeat, where is the rare books and manuscripts?
At the Grolier Club, Grolier. It's on East 60th Street.
Okay, thank you.
Manhattan.
Great, thank you so much. And I'm just gonna ask if anybody's got like super detailed stuff, if you can also do me a favor and shoot me an email with a couple of the 2-sentence, 3-sentence summary of your remarks, so that in case we missed anything, we can just drop that into the minutes. Makes it easier for me and for Alexis. Next up, we have Rachel Citron from Row, New York.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Good evening. I can't believe I said morning. I'm already thinking about Yom Kippur as well. Oh, just to let you know, Row New York, we are currently recruiting new athletes. So if you know of a high school student who'd like to join Row New York, this is the time of year that they should connect with us. This week and next week, we are looking for 9th through 12th. Because of COVID, we actually have more spots for 11th and 12th graders than usual. And I just want to remind or let people know that no swimming experience is necessary, no rowing experience is necessary. A young person just wants to be part of the team, and our program teaches kids how to row and then provides a lot of student support and success activities that help students through high school and through college. And if students want to sign up to get more information, they can go to our website, which is rownewyork.org. Is there a chat function? If there's a chat function here, I can also just chat the exact URL, but if not, I'll send it to the minutes. But they should be able to find it from our website, rownewyork.org.
There's only a Q&A function, and that is something that, as it turns out, only the panelists can see.
All right, well, I'll put it in there anyway, but I'll also send it to you so you have it for the minutes.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Megan Burns from the Morris Jamel Mansion.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to share a few upcoming events that we have at Morris Jamel Mansion. Starting tomorrow, we have our virtual parlor chat on September 15th at 7 p.m. It's called Exploring Tumba Francesa, which is a French, Haitian, and Cuban dance with choreographer Catherine Tarosi. Starting on September 16th and every Thursday through September 30th at 5:30 p.m., there will be a free bachata dance class with Osaliki Sepulveda. No registration is required, just show up. On September 18th, we're going to continue the dance theme with Con Edison Family Day. We will have fan making at 1 p.m., followed by French contra dance lesson at 2 p.m., from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. And then lastly, I'd like to invite everyone to join us on October 9th for our Heritage Rose Volunteer Gardening Day from 11 to 3 p.m. It's back. It's normally in April, but we're excited to bring it back for October. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you very much.
What time was that, Megan?
Oh, the Heritage Rose Day. That starts at 11 a.m. and goes until 3 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next up, we have Martin Collins from NOMA.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Liz, members of the committee and the board who are present. Welcome back. I want to let you know that we should ask you to please see the Northern Manhattan Arts Alliance newsletter at nomanyc.org for exhibitions, events, open studios, artist funding opportunities, and more. You may submit your arts and cultural events to our website, nomanyc.org, for publication in both our online calendar and our weekly newsletter. And on behalf of Neria Leva Gutierrez, our executive director, I want to thank Jennifer Hoppe, Northern Manhattan Parks Administrator, and the Fort Tryon Park Trust for a memorable gathering on site, memorial gathering on site on September 11th with art, music, and poetry to remember everyone on 9/11. And Thursdays with NOMA will resume in November. Please see our website, nomanyc.org, for details. If you have any questions, please email info@nomanyc.org for more information. I'll also send that to Nobles and you via email. Thank you to both.
Thank you. Marty, do you know who's your first, do you know who's on deck for Thursdays with NOMA? Can you give us a tease?
If you give me 30 seconds, I'll pull that right up. I know Nadima Agot is our November 11th. And give me one moment and I'll pull that right up for you.
Great.
Move on to the next person, then come back to me.
Okay, so next up, we've got Alexis Marnell. You can email yourself your notes from Dance Theater of Harlem.
No, not dance. No, Classical Theater of
Classical
Harlem.
Theater of Harlem. There's a lot going on in Harlem.
Yeah, lots going on. So we had a great summer. We had Seize the King. And fingers crossed that I will have very good news about a move to a theater this spring for that production. It was a New York Times critic pick. But I encourage everybody to go to www.cthnyc.org to view the stream of the event we had in Bryant Park this past Saturday of 2 pieces of our work, Langston in Harlem and A Harlem Dream. Also, for Every Voice Choirs, which is a children's after-school choir program that we also give need-based scholarships. It's www.everyvoicechoirs.org. There's no audition, and we also are offering an audition prep class so that kids who want to audition for a performing arts high school can get a leg up. It's a sliding scale, and they can get their portfolio ready. And that's it.
Thank you very much. And last, we've got Jennifer Hoppe with, I imagine, some updates on parks events, of which there are many.
I won't do all the parks events. You can go to northernmanhattanparks.org and click on events, and you can see a lot of what's being offered in the parks. We've got, as Liz mentioned, we've got 16 different standing volunteer days each month in the parks uptown. We'd love to have your help at some of those. The High Bridge mountain biking course is the second Saturday of every month at J. Hood Wright with the Friends of J. Hood Wright. We have the second Saturday and another day each month at Fort Tryon Park. And at Isham, we have a group that's working regularly to help sustain Maria Law's legacy, and our gardener, Walter Markham, who also had to take a brief pause from work, so that we don't lose that wonderful legacy that Maria and Walter have built, and all those incredible Isham Gardens all past several years. Toast to Fort Tryon Park is the Fort Tryon Park Trust fundraiser on Sunday the 19th. Mark Levine is the honoree. Discount tickets for that probably end Wednesday night because there are just a few left. FortTryonParkTrust.org. There's live Latin jazz at that, and lots of local businesses are participating. There are lots of natural history programs, kids programs. Inwood, this Sunday, there's the intermediate kayaking program. There's a geology program that I think is full. We've got a forest ecology program for kids later this month at Highbridge. So check it out, northernmanhattanparks.org. And last but not least, on behalf of public programs at parks, I'm going to give you some inside information. We are starting a Highbridge Film Festival on the Highbridge pool deck. On September 24th, it's Dora the Explorer. October 1st is Selena. October 8th is Coco. And then October 15th is In the Heights, where the pool scene was filmed. So mark your calendars. On October 15th, the block party is going to start at 4. Movie starts at 7. And that's it on programs.
That sounds fantastic. And I love that you're showing Coco on my birthday. It's such a great film. I might have to do that. Marty, what you got for us?
Can you hear me, Liz?
Yes.
Lindell Brookhouse Gill will be our kickoff on November 4th at 7:30 p.m. Her website is very easy. L like Larry, B like boy, G like George, paintings.com, LGBpaintings.com. Lindell Brookhouse Gill will be our kickoff on November 4th, sponsored by Chalk NYC.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And for anybody who hasn't taken the opportunity to check out that programming, it was for months really the highlight of my week, those Thursdays.
Thank you, Liz.
Always learn something. Thank you, Marty. Did I miss anybody? I'm just looking to see if there's anybody with a hand raised that I missed. No, there is not. Excellent. Oh, wait, I just see a hand up, Cassandra Collazo. If this is a direct question for Jennifer, I would encourage you to throw a question in the chat. If this is an update on a Friends of group, fire away.
Oh, is this an appropriate time to just give a shout out to the Inwood Hill Park Rangers?
It's never inappropriate to give a shout out to the Park Rangers, but this is not the time in the agenda where we generally would do that, but shout away.
Okay, I just want to say an amazing experience that we're having. I'm a Girl Scout troop leader, Troop 3205. And the girls took an amazing hike with Ranger Ashley and Ranger Lisa. It was a 3-mile hike in Wood Hill Park to get their trail blazing badge. And I went places I never knew existed in the park. So they were able to achieve their badge. And also with Ranger Rob and Ranger Lisa, I'm starting a preschool program, kind of a 18-month to like 3-year-old program with her, where she's going to be doing basically singing and talking about nature with the young kids. I just want to say, Jennifer, I'm giving a big shout out to Ranger Rob and to Ranger Lisa and Ranger Ashley. We are having an amazing time. Thank you so much. That's it. Thank you.
Like I said, it's never a bad time to express gratitude.
And let me know if you need help with the permits for having the class, because we have so many permitted classes and activities given COVID. I'll put my email in the chat.
Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think you have the ability to put your email in the chat. So if you could just tell her what your email is.
Oh. Jennifer.hoppa, H-O-P-P-A, at parks.nyc.gov.
Oh, Jennifer, you're on speed dial for me. Thank you. Thanks.
Outstanding. Thank you so much. And thank you for your work and bringing so much programming into our parks, Cassandra. All right, next up, it's 7:06. Let's get a brief update from Jennifer. I know that we've got lots of outstanding projects that are sort of always in the hopper. You see what I did there? But if you could just let us know if there have been any changes since your last update. And I want to direct everybody's attention to Danny's very cute putty cat. That's a very cute cat you got there.
So just a few announcements related to public safety at Inwood. Everyone is aware we had some very tragic incidents happen in the park. The perpetrator was arrested, which is great. In response to that incident and some of the growing concerns in the community, the Manhattan Parks Commissioner, William Castro, has announced that we're creating a park enforcement substation on Dyckman Street, and we'll be getting a dedicated sergeant and 5 officers to help patrol Inwood and Fort Tryon parks, which is great. And then we'll have the staff presence right there. We're also expanding the wayfinding. We're also expanding the wayfinding.
Those numbers again, it's one sergeant.
One sergeant, 5 officers.
Thank you.
We're also expanding the wayfinding signage program. We had done one with the Urban Park Rangers and One Police Plaza several years ago. The wayfinding maps. We have 16 sites in the park that are GPS located. So if you're by that sign, you tell EMS where you are, or if you're near, you passed a sign and you find someone in duress, you can use that location. So we're going to be expanding that with Parks new signage program and signage committee. We're also working with the Urban Park Rangers, who've received some increased staff, the Fort Tryon Park Trust, the Natural Areas Conservancy, and our stewardship program to expand programming in the forest to help activate it and make it feel safer, on top of what's already happening there and New York Roadrunners Run program and other activities. Also at Inwood, just to facilitate more public access in the forest, we have $800,000 worth of pathway work that's slated to happen, and a retaining wall in the interior of the forest is going to be repaired to ensure safe passage. So that's public safety at Inwood. This committee has been very involved in the conversation about the Fort Washington Greenway, the temporary closure. We heard lots of concerns about access during the peak season and preserving that on the Greenway in Fort Washington Park between 180th Street and Dyckman Street. This Parks Department received funding to address sinkholes, several sections of the retaining wall there that were broken. We had talked about a 4-month closure, and then there had been obviously concerns raised. We've had an on-site meeting recently with the construction contractor that was awarded the job. Fortunately, we're going to be able to reduce both the duration of and the length of the detour. The plan now is in early October, contractor would start work at the north end of the Greenway, so people can continue to use 181st Street as the access point on the pedestrian bridge downtown. And similarly, if you're heading north on the bike path in Fort Washington, you wouldn't have to exit at 158th Street. You could continue all the way to 181st Street. So the section from 181 or 182 rather, sort of up to Dyckman Street will be closed for about 3 months. So that last mile will be closed, but it's no longer 3 miles that sort of are no longer accessible for entry and exit points. So that's good news. So we appreciate all of the input that helped us in our conversations and negotiations with the contractor.
So does that mean the southern piece between 158 and 181 will be closed for some short period of time thereafter, like beginning January-ish?
Yes, for 1 month.
Got it. Thank you.
Least likely, it's when the bike path is used the least in terms of seasons and commuting. Now, all of this is subject to weather, obviously. Because if we get a huge snowstorm in October, like in 2012, all bets are off. But that's the current plan. So, if you didn't know, Highbridge and J Hood have reopened to the public, our 2 recreation centers. Highbridge, as many of you know, served as a COVID testing site, a massive one for a really long time, and J Hood was used for emergency childcare. Those have both reopened to the public, and if you visit a recreation center between now and December 31st, you can get a free 1-year membership. So take advantage of that. There's a great workout area in
But you
Highbridge.
said free 1-year membership at Highbridge?
Highbridge Recreation Center or J Hood Wright Recreation Center. Yep. So head on over before December 31st. And last announcement is the spotted lantern infestation. We unfortunately have an incredible pest in our midst. Lycoma, I can't even pronounce it. Anyway, spotted lantern fly. It's a invasive plant hopper. It can infest trees, but previously hadn't really been considered a threat to our city's forest, but they're becoming increasingly prevalent. The Parks Department's partnering with the Department of Environmental Conservations and others. Squish them if you see them. There's more information.
I take good
available.
pleasure out of killing them. I've killed a few.
Okay. If you can also report them. So
Yeah, I
that
got to
they
take a
can-
picture. Yeah.
So they can see how much growth, the incident, the frequency, like the volume of spotted lanternflies. So you can email foresthealth@parks.nyc.gov, or you can call it in, to 311, or you can send it to me and I'll get it to the right people. And just 3 quick capital updates. Liz mentioned in Loftus is underway. At Audubon, the playground is done with the exception of some remaining electrical work. The comfort station there is still ongoing. We're hoping by the end of the fall. The Highbridge Water Tower is expected to be done for public access November 1st. And in terms of the Inwood Nature Center, on-site construction meetings with a contractor about staging, access points, retaining public access have happened. Permits are being pulled. On-site visible work is expected to start in early October, and that's an 18-month duration. And then later on in the meeting, Liz, you're going to be updating capital budget priorities.
Yes, so
I'll do those. Yeah, I have some updates on some of your current priorities. I'll save those.
Great.
And I think that's it.
Fantastic. All right, we'll take a couple of questions since we are doing well on time. Please keep your questions brief, and if they're the sort of thing that you can ask in an email, please do that instead. First up, we have Sally.
Yes. What's going on right now with the Urban Park Rangers? I know they've been displaced from the Payson Park House because of damage. When will we get them back? And also, how many of the additional budgeted park rangers do you think we will get in Northern Manhattan?
Where'd Jennifer go?
Oh, wow, she's frozen. Oh.
It's a good freeze. Her face.
Yeah, right? I was like, is she thinking? It's like deep in thought right there.
Oh, and now
Oh.
she's gone
Yeah, she'll be
altogether.
back on.
She'll be back.
Okay. The next item up is the presentation from the Historic House Trust. But I just want to vamp for time here for a minute to see if Jennifer comes back on.
Old business, new
Yes.
business?
Here we go. No, here we go.
Okay.
This is,
Coming.
okay.
Sorry about that. I
No
lost service for a second.
No worries. Okay, so did you hear Sally's question?
No.
Okay, sorry, I'll repeat again. As you're aware, there was a follow-up meeting where people were actually advocating rather than for PEP officers for more urban park rangers. They can do the same thing, but they don't frighten people out of the park. My question is, we know we've lost our urban park rangers in Inwood Hill Park because of flood damage. Do we know when that's going to be repaired and when they will be returning to the park? And also, do we know how many urban park rangers we should expect from the increase in funding for this fiscal year?
Oh, sorry. We did not lose our urban park rangers in Inwood Hill Park. Since a year after Sandy, they've been based in the Payson Center that served as the Rangers headquarters. So people on the south end of the Inwood Hill Park community have had the benefit of, for the first time, rangers in their immediate vicinity. In terms of how many we're getting in the upcoming allocation, I believe it's 8, but I can verify that. So the PEP is not going to erase the number of urban park rangers that we get assigned. We agree, we feel that interpretive programs, monitoring, help with stewardship, they're invaluable. So, but I do want to make that distinction. I know people who live up by 218th Street lost close proximity to the Rangers.
I thought there was damage to the Payson Park House.
Sally, we're not doing this. I do also want to just clarify that Jennifer did report at the last meeting and at the meeting before that, quite specifically on this point, that that the Rangers were relocated to Payson, and with the reconstruction of the Inwood Nature Center, they will be leaving Payson and going back to where you are familiar with seeing them. Jennifer.
Right. The point that I was making, Liz, and please don't interrupt me, is at one point we had heard that there was water damage to the Payson Park House, and so they were relocated to Marcus Garvey, I think. So they're back?
So there are some roof leaks. Payson is, like many buildings in the Parks Department, was, works progress era, if not earlier. But the site is usable, but it's not ideal. Some remediation work is going to be taking place. So for a 4-month duration, they have chosen to relocate down to Pelham Fritz in Harlem, but they're still doing programs in Inwood. And we obviously want to have them back in Payson in 4 months, and then back at the Inwood Nature Center.
Thank you. That's what I thought.
Okay, next up, Alexis.
Yeah, so Jennifer, I know I have been quite the pest this summer with this question, but I just wanted to put it on record at the meeting. What, if anything, can we do about these motorcycles that are going through the path on High Bridge Trail? Because between them and the people with their dogs off leash, I have a pit bull, okay? My dog is always on a leash, all right? But what can we do? Is there increased signage at least that we can put for people to put their dogs on a leash? What can be done to get these people with their motorcycles off the trail?
So generally, in order to keep other pedestrians who are using the trail safe, park enforcement and NYPD will not pursue in a vehicle. What they are doing is when a revel or motorcycle is parked within a park, they can issue a summons, because clearly they had to drive through the park to get to that location. They can confiscate things that aren't properly licensed. So usually it's when it's stopped moving. We've put signage up in places where it is a problem. We can add more, but generally these seem to be people who do not care and who have adopted the attitude of, if no one catches me, I'm good. So it's not ideal. I know it's throughout Washington Heights and Inwood, and actually throughout the city, Upper West Side, Queens, you Google it, the motorbikes and their speeding have seemed to have proliferated during the pandemic. So it's not an easy solution. I think the borough president had put forth a plan to the mayor. I can go back and find out what the status is on her recommendations and if they're being followed. But another one was, I think, at gas stations and in apartment buildings. Can't park those motorized scooters inside. And so that would be another opportunity to confiscate.
And what about more signage about the dogs on leash?
So there's signage about that on every park entrance. We can do some more. You're talking about the access trail from 157th to the bridge?
Yeah, and
Okay.
actually at Roger Morris Park by the mansion.
Right. Again, ticketing seems to be what works, but right now we have a park enforcement detail assigned to High Bridge. I can ask them to do more, make more focus on the dogs off leash at the south end of the park, and have them check in on Roger Morris Park as well.
Because I've seen, let me just say what I've seen, which is a little dangerous. There are men that I'm seeing that are training pit bulls to fight, and they're taking them off leash in the parks.
Okay, where in the park?
So I've seen it a couple of times. Just 2 days ago, I saw it over at Roger Morris Park on the hill that faces 160, right?
Okay.
And then I see it on the grass lawn that's like by the High Bridge section that is on the other side of, on Edgecombe, it's on the other side of the mansion.
Okay. Noted.
I'd like to move the agenda.
Thank you, Jennifer.
We've got
Sure.
3 more questions. Please keep the questions and the answers brief. Daryl.
Thanks. I just have 2 probably short questions. One is update on Gorman Park, and 2 is the canopy between Inspiration Point and Dykeman, there is just so overgrown. Is there anything that can be done with that, or what is anything going on currently?
So Gorman is part of a multi-site retaining wall contract, which includes the Fort Washington Bike Path, the Bennett Avenue Rock Face Slide, Gorman, and then a site in Harlem. I believe Gorman is happening next after the Fort Washington Greenway with the contractor. In the interim, Parks Engineering Division has enlisted help from DOT, and they're going to be going into Gorman. We're going to be going in, cutting back, and having all the lighting re-energized so that that's up and ready when the retaining wall work is complete. And I can find out what the construction duration is once they do mobilize, because I don't know that off the top of my head. In terms of the canopy along you're talking about the bike path from, and you said from Inspiration Point to, we've lost a lot of trees there, Daryl, but we can talk, and we actually had Parks Forestry come out in an effort to make the Cobra head lighting that's like intended for the highway to have maybe more of a shine or illuminate the adjacent bike path. We did do some. I'm
talking about the invasives that are there. Like there's ivy or whatever, it's just overgrown over the trees that are there.
Oh, on the vine. Well, across from the arcade, there's nothing. It's all gone. And in recent storms, we lost a few other trees, but I can ask forestry to take another look.
That'd be great.
Thank you. Danny.
I'll make this quick. Talking about the path, by any chance is the Haven Park underpass going to be redone? And also, will the path have lights? I don't know too much about that project. I run that path a lot, and I'll probably be running it throughout like fall and winter time. So I just want to know more or less about just if that Haven underpass is going to be redone or anything, and will the path have like lights?
Sure. Danny, do you mean starting up at Haven and all the ramps and the switchbacks and then under the Henry Hudson Parkway?
Yeah, I've ran that a couple of times and it's a mess down over there, and it's always dingy. And then it goes in the underpath and then it meets to the green path.
The forest, right. So Parks has been working with the Port Authority, the Department of Transportation, the State Department of Transportation. There are multiple jurisdictions there, which makes it difficult. And actually the community board's manager in his district service cabinet meetings, it's an ongoing agenda item. We're trying to sort out who is really responsible for what. You'll notice some of the lights have Port Authority emblazoned on them. We've reached out to City DOT that does in-park and pathway lighting. They've energized some of the posts that they have direct control over. And then we're trying to get the tunnel under the Henry Hudson Parkway lighting repaired by the Department of Transportation contractor. So it's multiple agencies, unfortunately. And ultimately, we would love that, we're trying to forge a coalition to minimize the confusion, to ensure every agency is clear on what they're supposed to be doing. The posts are regulated by state DOT in some places because it holds up roadways that are considered part of the built system. But it's sort of a Robert Moses cluster of, he pushed through highways, and then there's a lot of confusion about the jurisdiction. So in the interim, we're doing what we can. Mobilization in that area is really challenging because it's super narrow and then you've got so many overhangs. But I appreciate your elevating it. In terms of its reconstruction, I think the community board can have it as one of its capital budget priorities. And then we can figure out if it's parks or it's the Department of Transportation that's ultimately going to be, reconstructing it.
And the other question, will the path have any lights? And then for
Well,
the nighttime.
so the pathway does have some lights, and we've gotten Department of Transportation to fix the ones that they have jurisdiction over. Some of them they still need to make repairs on. The others that have Port Authority markings on them, that's going to be a heavier lift. And that's Haven Avenue down to Riverside Drive before you go under the Henry Hudson Parkway.
I'm actually talking about just the green path from like Dykeman all the way to 181.
No, it's not currently funded for lighting. Again, if the Department of Transportation adds some sort of overhang on the Cobra lights, that might be an opportunity for getting the bike path illuminated.
Okay, that would be great because I would like to run that in the nighttime sometimes, you know.
But that may be something the Parks Committee and the Transportation Committee sort of put forward as a capital funding priority.
Hold that thought for later in the meeting. I definitely want to move the agenda, so Nobles, if you guys.
No problem.
Sure. I'll keep it quick. Hey, Jen, real quick, around the spotted lanternflies, right? So I was at a different park, like literally right across the water yesterday. There was an infestation. Like, is there, what happens when that happens? Like, is there a way to kill these things in mass? Or is it once the horse is out of the barn, it's done when it comes to this specific invasive species?
I don't know what New Jersey's doing. They're saying stomp it out and report it to 833-4 bad bug.
Oh, really? Okay, that's what they're
They have a
saying?
whole stomp it out campaign,
Yeah,
but I don't know if they're I don't know if they're getting, like, I don't know what level this is at beyond the tri-state region. So I don't know if the federal government's funding something or if it's each state on its own.
sure.
I can find out. I'm trying to bring forestry to your committee next month to sort of report on what they're doing in the Inwood Forest,
Nice.
the Highwood Forest, and some of our natural areas. So maybe
Nice.
they could be prepared to answer questions on
Thanks.
that.
I'll call that number for now. And my last quick question here, the task force of police officers that are going to be helping out with more patrolling of the parks, is it a task force that's like between the precincts? Like, how does that actually break down?
So it's not NYPD, it's Parks Enforcement.
Okay.
So
So it's
right
more
now
park rangers then, basically, unless I'm understanding the
No,
terminology
so
incorrectly.
they're two different things. Park rangers are more education, monitoring conditions, public programs.
Mhm.
And then park enforcement patrol are peace officers. They're not weaponized. They can issue summonses.
Yeah.
Their priority is educating about park rules. And then the last resort is sort of summons.
Yeah. Like the horse riders. Like that would be
The
that
horse
core.
riders,
Okay.
a lot of them are in SUVs. Some of them are
Okay,
in.
I know what you're talking about. Right.
Scooters.
Thank you for the
Yeah.
stipulation. Appreciate it.
And last but not least, Steve Simon.
Yeah, Daryl, the duration of the Gorman Park project, I believe, is going to be 3 or 4 months, similar to the work on the Greenway. Jennifer, did you mention the opening of High Bridge Phase 1?
Oh, yes, we're going to be reopening from the Laurel Hill Terrace area from 180th Street up to Wallenberg at 190th on September 20th. Great new walking path, fully lit, great for jogging. We're still working on the remaining lighting from behind Wallenberg Playground at Amsterdam on 190th down to Dykeman. We're working with Con Ed to bring in a new point of entry for the electric, and that's taking longer than everybody wants, but it'll happen. So in the meantime, enjoy the new staircase at Laurel Hill and that beautiful lit path, 10-block path.
And it's a major accomplishment of our Anchor Park project.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, and roughly on schedule.
Can we get there, guys?
7:34. We've got, hold on, let me turn on this fan. We've got a presentation from the Historic House Trust on projects happening at both the Dykeman Farmhouse and the Morris Jamel Mansion. I don't know what order you want to present in. That's up to you. But what I would like to do is give you the time to go through presentation of both things, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. And I will take questions on whichever one you presented first, and whatever you presented second. And before I turn the floor over to you, I just want to remind folks that we do have to have a short conversation about capital and expense budget priorities. I put 30 minutes for it, but I think we don't really need more than about 15. It is my goal to end this meeting by 8:30. So I'd like to keep things moving on this. And I ask that people please pay attention and keep your questions focused to things to clarify whatever you may not have understood, not what you were not listening to. And thank you. So John.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Ritter. I appreciate you chairing this committee and inviting me to speak tonight. One sort of overarching question I have for you is, if I have images to show, do I have the ability do you turn control over to me to show the images?
Yeah, I can make you a co-host.
Okay.
He has sharing abilities already. You
Oh,
don't
he
have to
does?
convert him.
Oh, okay, great. Then in that case, share away. Thank you, Paola.
Okay. And then I see share screen. I see the button has been activated. Thank you. By way of introduction, I'm wondering if my colleagues from the Parks Department, Steve Simon or Jennifer Hoppe, if you have any introductory statements to make. I know you regularly attend this meeting before I begin the presentation.
Just that John Krawchuk is amazing as the leader of the Historic House Trust. And he has been dedicated to parks and historic preservation, gosh, for what, 25, 30 years?
Parks, 25 years.
Yes. So we're in incredible hands, and he's worked with people from all different disciplines to restore historic properties. We've got this incredible benefit now that, having been the former head of historic preservation for parks, he's now the head of Historic House Trust in our 22 historic sites. Historic houses?
23.
Yeah. So
very good.
Take it away, John.
Well, thank you, Jennifer. And I'm surprised at how much you remember about these details, but because you have, in Northern Manhattan, you have two houses. So Dykeman and Morris Jamel, which I know we're very appreciative of everything you do to support those houses. So thank you. Steve, did you want to say something?
No, I was waiting for you to acknowledge how closely you've worked with the Manhattan Borough Office to raise the funding for these two projects. So I'm sure that you'll get to that.
It's always a team effort, and it's a joy actually to work with all of my colleagues on this call. I know that we have, of course, the committee, and then the various representatives that report out to from the Parks Department, but we also have a lot of attendees on this call. Megan Burns, we haven't had the chance to actually meet in person, but we have spoken on the phone. And of course, in the waiting room, we have other representatives from our houses, the Dykeman Farmhouse and the Morris Jamel Mansion. And so always an incredible team effort to work closely with our elected officials who are so generous in supporting our historic houses. And particularly in Northern Manhattan, I'm about ready to share some great news with you about the level of support. So I'll launch right in, just because I know we're a little pressed for time to stay on the schedule, and there's probably a lot to talk about. So Ms. Ritter, I'd like to actually start with the Dykeman Farmhouse, since you mentioned that one first. The funding for the Dykeman Farmhouse is $6,462,000. And that funding was collectively provided by Ydanis Rodriguez, the local council member, the borough president, Gail Brewer, and some mayoral funds as well. There was discretionary funds that were involved initially through Council Speaker Melissa Viverito. I know she worked closely with Council Member Ydanis Rodriguez in order to secure this funding for the house. And it's an incredible amount of funding, I have to say. And the house sure needs it. It's been decades since the house had a full restoration. And the Parks team and those representatives from the Dyckman Farmhouse Alliance can attest to how wonderful this allocation is. The process, I should say, just by way of introduction for both projects, is it's kind of unusual that we present, I believe, at community board meetings for the kickoffs for design projects. So this is kind of a special thing, but we know there's a lot of interest in both these sites, and the general public as well as the community wanted to know exactly what's happening with them, largely because of condition issues that are quite visible on the exterior of the houses. And so I'm really glad to be here tonight to be able to speak to these. But there was a feeling that it would be very helpful to give an update on the design stage, despite the fact that we're at the very beginning of the start of the design phase for both of these projects. So there's not really a lot to report on like we would be able to at the conclusion of a design project, where we would actually have either a schematic design to share with you or a fully completed design. But I would like to just share with you some background on exactly what is happening with the houses, and let you know who the design consultant teams are that have been hired. So starting with the Dyckman Farmhouse, again, $6,462,000 is the available funding. The design contract has been awarded to John G. Waite Associates, who is a very well-known historic preservation architecture firm located here in Manhattan. And we're very pleased that we're able to manage this project through what's called the sole source design contract. Actually, both of these projects are being done through the Historic House Trust. Our organization, which has a license agreement with the Parks Department, has the ability to take city dollars and to utilize them for the benefit of our houses for both design and construction work. And so that is due to our unique expertise in understanding the needs of historic houses and historic sites that are affiliated with them. And so it allows us also better control over the selection of the design team and the consultants and ultimately the contractor if we end up bidding the design work and the construction work through our organization, Historic House Trust. So that's a real benefit to the city. I believe ultimately a cost and a time savings, and allows us better control and to have better results for our historic houses. The design work that the scope of work for the design of the Dyckman Farmhouse is a full restoration of the exterior of the house, the interior of the house, and the park setting, the actual surrounding landscape. The goal is to fully restore it and bring back some of the interpretive qualities of the house, as well as to make it fully ADA accessible. And that would be from street level all the way to the base of the site. And ultimately, once the consultants study it, to determine if it's possible to make any portion of the interior of the house accessible as well. And this is for ADA, for people with disabilities. So the idea would be to study it and determine what is possible. As part of that proposed project right now, there is a idea to actually potentially add on to the structure. Now, this is at the very beginning stages of being looked at by our design team. There is no actual design. This will require working very closely with the community once there is a schematic design that needs to be understood, as well as with the Landmarks Commission, because this is an individual landmark. Obviously, the addition of a new structure onto an individual landmark, a historic structure, is a very serious consideration. And so we've hired a great team that will study this and allow us to determine if that's possible and ultimately what that might look like. The uses that would be housed in this new structure would be new toilets, which are desperately needed at the Dyckman Farmhouse. The current toilets are under the porches of the house. They don't need any code at all. The ceilings are very low. They were designed in the 1930s, and they're not even properly heated. They're actually just very rudimentary public toilets. So the goal would be to add onto the structure, move the offices for the Dyckman Farmhouse Alliance into the new structure, move the public toilets into the new structure, and move the caretaker into the new structure. And so the idea would be then to free up the portion of the house, which we believe is the oldest section of the house, which is on the southern end of the house where the caretaker currently lives, to further use by the Document Farmhouse Alliance and interpretation. And so that is the proposal for the Dyckman Farmhouse Museum restoration. The anticipated timeframe for that project is approximately 12 months. And so we're hoping that that design work will be completed in the fall of 2022. And I'd like to quickly show you an image. I guess I should share my screen right now with you. And let me just see, here we go here. Are you able to see my screen?
Yep, all set.
And can you see the Dyckman Farmhouse in the image or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Can, okay, great. So this is an image of the house. And can you see in the hand cursor that I'm moving about on the screen?
No.
Okay. So the image that's currently on the screen is the view from what is now Broadway before the retaining wall and Broadway was fully cut through. On the left-hand side, you can see what's currently the caretaker section of the house, which is what we believe the oldest part of the house. And then in the center is the house that was reconstructed in the 1780s after it was destroyed during the Revolutionary War. And to the right of that, you can see the addition that was demolished in the 1920s. And I'm going to drag the screen up and show you a closer view of what that image is. Can you see that image on the screen?
Yes. And can you tell us when was this picture taken?
This
1895.
picture,
I see.
yes, yeah, exactly. So I can kind of move it over slightly just so that you can, you have a sense. This is in the 1895, and it's from the New York Public Library.
Yeah, the image is not moving if you had intended that to happen.
Oh, it's not. You can't see it. Maybe I need to refresh the screen.
Yeah.
Okay, 1 second, please. I apologize.
It's okay. So to be clear, what it is you're trying to zoom in on is the area to the right of the screen that's sort of partially obscured by, or was before, it's partially obscured by the skeletal tree. There's like a tree in front of it.
Sorry.
Now we're just looking at you, kid.
You can do more of that interpretational tree, Liz. I was enjoying that.
Yeah. Okay, so I think if you can just, if you're not able to zoom it, if you could just put that photo back on.
Okay. Let me just do the share screen again. Can you see that image? It's two photos.
Yes.
Okay, great. The one on the bottom actually shows a very clear image of this was an extension that was added on to the house, we believe around 1835, and it was demolished in the 1920s.
We can actually see your cursor now. So if you want to move your cursor around to show us, yep,
Right here.
got it.
And then in this image, it would be on that side of the house. This is Broadway. And then the cut that came through in the retaining wall would be what currently exists at the house today.
I see. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
And so this will be the reference image for the design consultants that will be exploring the idea of potentially adding on to the building.
Got it. All right, you know what? I'm actually going to reverse what I had said before. I think it makes more sense to have a few questions about this and then go to your next presentation, because I think it's going to be disorienting to try and go back to this after we've got our heads in the Morris Jamel Mansion. So to be clear, the oldest section that we're seeing now in the foreground. That's the original section of the house, which is the caretaker's residence and the public restrooms in the back that we can't see. The section of the house that we understand as the house is the larger piece is the was built in the 1700s.
Yes, the 1780s is the main section of the house. And then the caretaker's quarters is something that we actually hope to learn a bit more about as part of the restoration to confirm, if it is the oldest part of the house, approximately when does it date to? It's possible that it could have been from also the 1780s, but I think it's something that requires a little bit of further clarification. And Don Rice, who is actually the board chair of the Dyckman Farmhouse Alliance Museum, is actually on this call. And so perhaps he could also further elaborate when the time comes for comment, for public comment.
And the addition, which was removed in the 20s and which is shown in that 1895 photo, was built when?
1830, approximately 1835.
Okay, and when was the Dyckman Farmhouse landmarked?
Oh gosh, I think that was probably a very early one in the probably very close to the formation of the Landmarks Law in 1965.
Okay, but so it was landmarked without the thing that had been removed in the 20s, but the thing that was removed in the 20s was an older part of the, so it's a little hard. Okay, I think I get it. Do people have questions? Actually, before we go to questions, I'm gonna invite Don to speak to this a little bit. And is Meredith on the call? I'm actually gonna ask Meredith to speak first and then Don.
I'm here. Can you hear me, Liz?
Yes.
Hi, it's Meredith. Hi, John. So yeah, John is right with the landmarking was in, I think it was 1965 or 1967. And the area that the caretaker currently lives in, we believe to be possibly 1720s, but we don't know for sure.
Okay. Don, you got anything else you want to add?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, landmarked in 1967. The north addition was torn down when the museum was built because it was thought to be not original to the farmhouse. It's on the 1818 John Randell map of Manhattan. That northern addition hadn't been built yet. And then as John said, by 1835, it shows up on sketches. So sometime in between 1818 and 1835, it was built, but that's still 40, 50 years possibly after the main part of the farmhouse was constructed. So when the museum was opened in the mid-teens, that was considered non-original. And so they tore it down.
Got it. Okay. When the museum was opened in the mid-19-teens.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Are there questions? Does the public have questions? I'm not seeing any hands raised. Does the committee have any questions?
Pretty straightforward, long overdue. I'm glad it's happening.
Yeah.
And then I just put a quick image up of that facade of the house, just so you can see where the addition was removed.
Got it.
I
I'm curious.
had a question. Hello?
That,
Oh,
Darryl.
yeah, you said the design part of it would be done in a year, so next fall. And when would it actually be completed?
The design is anticipated to be completed in the fall of 2022.
No, I meant the restoration.
Oh, the full restoration. So once the design is completed, it'll have to go through a bid phase where it's put out for bid, and then it will have to be registered. And so that could be, anywhere from, possibly up to 4 or 5 months for that process to take place. And then construction for this will be quite complicated. easily a year and a half, more likely 2 years worth of construction. So we are talking about potentially after the design is completed, easily about a 3-year period before this work is completed.
So late 2024, early 2025, basically.
2025 is more likely if we're completing the design in 2022.
Got it.
Thank you.
Before I recognize Sally, I just want to say that it sounds like you're probably going to want a resolution from us at some point, but it's obviously not that'll be part of the design process. You're, I assume, going to have some kind of public scoping meeting, and you'll be gathering some input. You'll be showing us some kind of preliminary design.
Correct.
We'll be weighing in on that. And so if you're anticipating that the design is complete in the fall of 2022, since we don't meet over the summer, I would respectfully request that if it's possible for you to be able to make a presentation to us in May would be ideal.
Okay. Very good. Happy to do that.
Sally.
Yeah, John, this is probably really too early to ask the question, but I'll ask it anyway. Do you have any ideas right now of what will happen to the grounds, how you will restore them to be historically accurate?
We don't. And as part of the design team, John G. Waite Associates, we have a team of about 8 sub-consultants that are involved with this project. It's quite complicated. And one of them is a landscape architect. And so that landscape architect has been hired to really study the site. I think we're all very aware of the grade challenges here. It's approximately 20 feet above Broadway. And so that will require a really specialized hand in threading that accessibility onto the site, as well as activating the site to really improve the use of the site for the incredible work that the Dyckman Farmhouse Museum Alliance does here. The site gets a lot of visitation from children, as you can imagine, in a normal year, maybe not during COVID at the moment, but we anticipate for that to return at some point soon. And then, of course, for general enjoyment and use of the public. So a lot of these ideas we're hoping will just come out of the various meetings that the consultants will hold with the various experts and in consultation with all of you as the public who will be commenting on this. And we're hoping to come to you nice and early once we really have a good solid schematic. By the time we get to the fall of 2022, we want the construction documents ready to bid out. And so I think it's not a problem at all to be coming to you with some general ideas in May or earlier in order to get your feedback.
Great, thank you.
Great, thank you very much. And I would also, I'd like to shout out the Dyckman Farmhouse for the incredible work that they have been doing in the last couple of years around really helping the neighborhood to understand a lot of aspects of our history, and particularly at this time of social upheaval, and in really understanding race and the role that slavery played uptown, and understanding where we are with that. It's an incredibly important topic, and we are all better for the work that Meredith and the staff and board of the Dyckman Farmhouse are doing. They've also done such a good job at different kinds of public listening sessions, that an extension of that for listening sessions around what would you like to see in a modified design, it doesn't necessarily have to flow through this committee. The farmhouse has been doing a really good job of public engagement around that. So I look forward to continued robust programming in that vein. I'm seeing. Okay, so with no more questions, let's move to the Morris Jamel Mansion.
Great. So the Morris Jamel Mansion, that is a project that has been funded for $1,882,000. And the funding for that was provided with support from the mayor, the Manhattan Borough President, and again, Councilmember Ydanis Rodriguez, who has so generously supported these important improvements and restoration work at the house. Again, done through a design sole source contract through the Historic House Trust. The consultants who have been hired are Page Cowley Architecture, LLC, and they will be working on doing a full exterior restoration of the building, of the house, which is desperately needed for anyone that has been up there lately. You can see that a lot of the paint is starting to peel off the house. It has been for a number of years. It's quite a challenge for us to actually maintain on any given day, just because the city does not allow for capital dollars to be spent on maintenance, which painting is considered. And that is the reason why it is so challenging for us to accomplish that very important and delicate work and expensive work without having a significant capital project. And that's what we have here, which is fantastic. So along with the exterior facade restoration includes some restoration of woodwork, which is deteriorated, potentially some restoration of the roof, because it's been about 25 years since the roof was last replaced. And then also ADA access, accessible access to the first floor of the museum, and the creation of an ADA compliant toilet facility on the first floor. So, and as part of that, we'll address some drainage around the exterior of the house as well. And I think that concludes my description of the scope of work. We've been very pleased to be able to work with our partners at Morris Jumel Mansion, Inc. In advocating for these funds. I see Wayne Benjamin is perhaps on the community board. I don't know if I knew that, Wayne. So good to see you. And of course, your attendees, Shiloh, and probably several other supporters are also present from the mansion. So we appreciate your attendance tonight. I look forward to your questions and comments, and I'm happy to answer them now.
Just before I recognize Shiloh, a quick clarification, the access to the first floor bathroom. So that's going to wind up being, because currently it's a 2-stall women's room, and then the men's room is downstairs. So I gather the first floor will become a single non-gendered bathroom, and then downstairs would become also a not accessible non-gendered bathroom.
Yes, the idea is to look at that as part of the design project to make sure that obviously we're looking at this holistically. And the idea would be to have universal access, which includes the all gender toilets, if possible. Definitely, though, a fully accessible toilet on the first floor, which would have to be, of course, all gender. And it'll likely be a single, it's quite a small space. Again, the design consultants will look at it, but it'll probably be a single use toilet, very likely.
Great, you might want to include a changing table. Shiloh.
Hi, Shiloh Hawley, Director of the Mansion here. I just wanted to have one quick clarification question. The actual project was funded at 2.7 million according to the scope of work. I believe John may have misspoke. And then secondly, I just wanted to add that the accessibility project is an extension of a 2016 capital project, I believe, to make the park more accessible. So we're really excited to continue this work to have that access to the museum itself, so we can continue to expand our programming and outreach to the community.
Thank you for that. Wayne, and just to clarify for the public, Wayne is indeed a member of the community board and is the chair of the land use committee. And I thought you were joining this meeting in that capacity. I totally forgot that you are also, of course, a longtime hardworking member of the board of the mansion. So thank you for that.
Yes, thank you, Liz. And yes, John, I have the pleasure of chairing land use for CB12, I think since 2003 or something. But for my fellow community board members, I also have had the pleasure of serving as the vice president of the Board of Trustees for Morris Jumel Mansion for a long time, maybe 10 years or more. And I want to acknowledge Councilman Rodriguez's, dedicated support for this project. He really came through when there were, significant capital budget gaps. The Board of Trustees has worked, closely with HHT and with Parks Department to make sure that this project moves forward. And Liz, you may recall that when Robert Jackson was in the city council, that was the genesis of the accessibility project for the ground floor and the toilet. That was a conversation we had during a Christmas party at the mansion. So the project goes back a long way, and the exterior restoration is, critical. The building is a gem, and we cannot have it fall apart after, lasting longer than the country's been the country on our watch. So the board is, thrilled that this is finally moving forward.
As is the community. Before I recognize Natalie, I have a question for you, John, about this whole thing of painting not being able to be a capital project. I get the difference between capital and expense, but DOT routinely has painting of bridges as a capital project, because we know that by keeping the paint coat of a bridge properly intact and sealed, that's what keeps a bridge from degrading. So in the case of, like a random rec center, no, but in the case of an historic house, I'm surprised that HHT isn't able to make an argument that historic houses are similar to bridges with respect to painting, and that this really is, it is capital preservation, and it should be capitally eligible.
So I'm not familiar with the program at DOT. Obviously, you probably have presentations all the time from them regarding your work on this committee. But I know that Parks is subject to PPB rules, and because I've been the director of historic preservation, I served in that role for 20 years prior to coming to the Historic House Trust. Whether it's a historic house or some other very important historic structure that may not be a historic house, but also a landmark structure. OMB has never allowed us to just solely do paint or maintenance on them. And I don't know if Steve Simon has any particular clarifying remarks on that. But as much as we've tried over the years, it's just never permitted unless capital work is being performed along with it, and the capital work results in the painting of.
Right. No, I hear you. What I am suggesting is that you perhaps reach out. So DOT and also the Port Authority have had over years many different projects that are painting bridges, which
Right.
is part of their capital program. So the concept of painting something as a capital improvement exists.
Right.
More of a transportation thing. So you
I'm
might,
happy to reach out to them.
I would suggest talking to somebody at one of these other agencies that does do capitally eligible painting to say, what magic words should we be using to get OMB to realize that the thing that you're doing, which is capitally eligible, is also something we're doing, which should be capitally eligible.
Right, and we all absolutely recognize how difficult that rule and that regulation has been. And you've actually used a magic word that I think may be the answer to your question, which is Port Authority.
It's not just the Port Authority though. DOT also paints bridges and it's capitally eligible. I'm just telling you, these are the two agencies that you can reach out to.
Sure.
And one of
Happy
them,
to do that.
one of them is a city agency.
Right.
So next up, we've got Natalie with a question.
Yes, Tom, thanks for the presentation. I just had a couple of clarifying questions. I didn't quite catch the name of the design firms selected for both projects.
Yes. So for the Dyckman Farmhouse, it's the Page Ayers Cowley Architecture LLC.
Okay, and that's the same for Jamel?
No, for Jumel, it's Page Ayers Cali Architecture LLC. For Dykeman, it's John G. Waite Associates.
Okay, and the budget for Jamel is the 2.7 million?
2.7 million. And I
Okay.
apologize for misspeaking earlier on that, but Shiloh is absolutely right, 2.7 million. And for the Dykeman farmhouse, it's 6,462,000.
Great, and then I will just channel our late friend Edith Prentice for a second, just to ask, as I always do, that people consider the spirit of accessibility, not just the letter. Remember that many people who have physical limitations also have caregivers who accompany them into facilities. So expand that space as generously as the design allows, so that caregivers or other companions can go in with folks who have mobility equipment.
Absolutely. Happy to make note of that. And I feel like the point that you've actually hit on, Natalie, is an important one that I feel NYC Parks has been very serious about addressing for decades, actually, in many of our parks. And I think with each passing year, there's sort of a continued focus and improvement on providing full accessibility and a welcoming environment to parks, as well as to parks facilities for the disabled and their caregivers, and to make our sites as accessible as possible.
And Liz, I forgot to mention that regarding the consultant selected for Morris Jamel, Paige Colley, Paige and I worked together on a prior project. It involved a National Register eligible theater in Harlem. She is excellent. And she and I owe each other lunch in Rome, which we have to schedule sometime.
Fancy.
That would be Rome, New York.
Okay, next up, we have a question from Alexander Campos, but before we do that, Paola, can you please make Jennifer Hoppe a co-host so that she can access the Q&A to provide an additional response to a very specific question
Sure.
a member of the public asked? Thank you.
Thanks, Paula.
Hello, John. Question I have for you. Can you provide the timeline as you did for the Morris Jamel Mansion, as you did for the Dykeman House? I think it's important to have that recorded.
Yes, it's the same time frame.
Yeah, it's quite prolonged. So even though it's a simpler job, it's quite prolonged. So
right, and I apologize. And so yes, Alex, and it's good to also hear you. And thank you for all of your work at the mansion. Yes, it's the same time frame. So the fall of 2022 is the anticipated completion of the design work. And then I believe that the time frame for construction will be shorter. Dykeman is very complicated. The work at Jumel, while being complicated, not as complicated and as extensive, because it involves just a small portion of the interior. So my feeling is that I think that it will probably be perhaps a 1-year construction period, hopefully, fingers crossed, maybe a little bit longer.
Thank you.
Great. And again, same sort of caveats around, I mean, since it's a less complicated design, I'm guessing it would be a less complicated. You may even be able to make the presentation a little bit sooner, and we're always happy to make the space for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Alex, sorry for not giving you a shout out for your work on the board as well. The Morris Jamel Mansion is extremely well represented here this evening. Are there any other questions that people have? All right, well, I thank you very much for your presentation. I look forward to seeing you again. And I am super looking forward to all of these projects. It's really, you can see my smile. I'm very happy, and I think on behalf of the community, so is everybody else. These are going to be great improvements once they're done.
Thank you for all of your work in Northern Manhattan for NYC Parks. We really appreciate it.
We love our parks. All right. Oh, wait, we've got one more attendee with a question. Oh, Megan Lynch. Yes. What you got?
Hi there. I just wanted to say thank you for finally addressing this project. I'm the museum coordinator at Morris Jamel, and every guest who has joined us since COVID has been given a visitor survey. And by far, the most redundant feedback that we get are concerns of the community about the exterior of the house. So we are eagerly looking forward to this project.
Me too. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right. So next up, we have discussion of capital and expense budget priorities. But actually, before I do that, I'm having a weird thing with the Q&A. Only the panelists can see it. And now that I've answered this particular question of Rajiv's, no one else is able to see it. So he's got two quick questions that I just want to flag for Jennifer. One, I am a city bike user and saw many damaged bikes and vandalized docks at the entrance to Margaret Corbin Plaza this evening. I reported these to City Bike and Lyft, but is there any sort of deterrent to this at the park entrance? It's distressing to see such destruction. Yes, that is distressing. And the second question is, there are portions of Fort Tryon Park where there is a lot of broken glass, typically hillsides below the lookouts. Is there any way to thwart these lest it deteriorate to how the Trailway and High Bridge has been littered? Thank you. So I don't know why these are weirdly not visible to Jen, even after having made you a co-host. But if you've got any feedback on that for Rajiv.
It should be in the answered section.
It is in the section.
But it's not showing up for me, Daryl, so I don't know if that was because I switched devices or was that Noble? Sorry. So just on the in terms of City Bike, that is DOT that regulates them. It is on parkland. I have to wonder, given the MTA contractors work right there, both on the roof and in the track area for the elevators, and then for another connection that they're working on, if it wasn't maybe the contractor. So I can flag that for Parks Interagency. If you can send me any pictures, Jennifer.Hoppa, my name is on the screen, HOPPA at parks.nyc.gov. And in terms of the broken glass, we hate it too. You're probably seeing more also because of the heavy rains that we've had. A lot of things that had been sort of underneath layers of silt got carried down. A lot of our slopes got scoured and a lot of that material now landed on pathways. So I walked the staircase from 196 up to Margaret Corbin Circle. I noticed a lot of glass there today. And a few other areas where people clearly like to take in the view and party. So more enforcement. I don't know if you were on the call earlier in the evening, but we were getting 6 new park enforcement officers specifically for Inwood Hill and Fort Tryon and for patrolling them. That will help. More uniform presence helps deter negative uses. And then more officers to be able to issue summonses after doing public education can help as well.
Okay, thank you very much. And last but not least, hold on a second. Last one, pass. Last but not least, it's 8:19. And I want to talk a little bit about capital. So next month is when we will do our capital and expense budget priority rankings. We kick off that discussion at the September meeting and share a little bit of information about what happened with last year's priorities. And Jennifer gives us some information about current capital stuff. And then we add some new items such as what's just come out of this meeting and what's come out of previous meetings. And we take the opportunity to sort of mull it over so that we can come back next month and make some informed decisions. So I did take, all of the board members received the capital budget priority rankings and the OMB responses. It's a little frustrating because the Parks Department is the only agency that does not have its own capital budget. Every other agency has both an expense budget and a capital budget. The Parks Department only has an expense budget. It does not have a capital budget. And the only way that capital projects happened in parks, as you heard in John's presentation, we have, 6 point whatever million dollars that came from the council member and the borough president, a little bit of mayoral money, and the speaker gave some money. That's how, cute child alert over your right shoulder, Nobles. Hello, cute child. Is this Hazel?
That one's Octavia.
Oh, sorry, that's Octavia. Hazel
Yeah.
is Octavia's older sister.
All right, keep going.
No worries. Okay, so
All right, girls.
and I do have to really express gratitude to Councilmember Rodriguez.
No, girls.
Like in previous, our previous council members has been extremely generous in allocating council funding for projects within Community Board 12, which has, more parkland and therefore greater capital need than literally any other community board in the city. We're like 40% parks land. So if you look at our roster of capital requests, there's, I don't know, there's 58 requests and like 20 of them are from this committee. It's unlike any, we're a very capital intense committee. And it's a very capital intense agency, and yet it has no capital budget. So all of that is a very long way of leading into the sad truth that when we get the report back from OMB about all of our capital requests, the response to most of them is, we don't have money for this. We suggest that you, direct the council member, the borough president, to this project and request for funding. So on the one hand, that's a little disheartening. On the other hand, we continue to go through this exercise as a way of ranking what our priorities are, not just as a committee, and as a board, but as a community, reflective of these conversations that we're having month in and month out. And that's how, Stanley Michaels and Robert Jackson and Mark Levine and Edonis Rodriguez know this is what they should be funding, because, and obviously they sometimes will fund things that are different than what we've outlined as our priorities, but that's how this process works. So I'm just shuffling some papers here.
We get no respect.
Oh, we actually, but we do. I mean, if you look through all of our old minutes, you'll see, Jennifer's month in and month out reports of here are all of the ways in which, millions of dollars are being spent on a dozen different capital projects or more that are happening simultaneously and that are in various forms of design, of contracting, of procurement, and of construction. So there's always lots going on. And while, it really sucks to walk past whatever playground and to see it be closed and behind fencing, that's actually great because it means it's being fixed. And when it's done, there's going to be this beautiful new rec center or stairway or bridge or playground or what have you. So before I turn it over to Jennifer to give us a little bit of an update, I do want to say that there's no committee of the community board that doesn't have some kind of overlap with at least one other committee in terms of capital. So there have been a couple of times where we've had conversations about, like, we need more lighting in the parks. That just came up that Danny raised earlier. Lighting is actually DOT, so even if it's in a park, that's a DOT capital project, and it goes through the Traffic and Transportation Committee. Last night, I hopped on the TNT Zoom. They were having this discussion that we are now having, and I said to Debbie, the chair of that committee, by the way, you said to remind you in September about the areas of parks where we have capital requests for lighting projects. It's September, I'm reminding you. So, we had a little discussion about that, and she's going to put that in the hopper of their committee's requests. I will also be having conversation with Curtis, the soon-to-be former public safety chair, regarding the ongoing, this is more of an expense thing than a capital thing, but the ongoing need for enforcement that is not just PEP, but also the NYPD. So Jennifer, what have you got for us in terms of new capital needs or particular capital updates?
I just, going by some of your past priorities, I wanted to let you know some updates. So those can either shift on your list or be taken up altogether. The Fort Washington Park Comfort Station, you remember we did the Plan YC, we did Adventure Playground, we did the new soccer field, yada, yada. We received funding from Councilmember Mark Levine for a $3.5 million prefab bathroom unit to go right where it's needed. And we're really excited about this prefab because we can pilot it and see if, how well it might work in other locations. So that has been funded. This committee,
bathroom?
I'm not, it hasn't been designed yet, so I'm sure, especially if it goes before this committee, it will be. The 186th Street basketball courts, Conectémonos had given a presentation way back when. The council member had provided initial seed money for that. As many people know, until a project is fully funded, the city's Office of Management and Budget won't let you advance it. You can't even start design work. Council member has given an additional funding for that of $700,000. And so now project is fully funded. So parks, once it came into our budget July 1, once a designer is assigned to it, we're gonna have a community input meeting as we always do. And Conectémonos, which has been doing public programming there, working with the youth, the community there, obviously will be playing a key role in that design process, as well as people on this call.
And what's the total funding on that?
Let's see, my math. I think it's 1.1 or 1.2 million.
So it was 350. He already did 350, and then
He already had put in about 400,000, and I think he added 710.
Okay.
Again, that's Councilmember Rodriguez funding that one, the second one. And Gail Brewer, I know this committee recognizes, and maybe some new people on the call, Northern Manhattan Parks has 60 miles of pathway and perimeter. During the Stanley Michaels era, he got the city council or the Manhattan delegation to give us about $1 million every year for pathway work. We haven't gotten that for quite some time.
As you know, we have 660 acres spread over 35 sites. We have lots of capital needs, and much of the infrastructure in our parks was built, WPA, right? So it's all coming, it's all sort of aging out at the same time. So there are a lot of needs. So our elected officials have funded facilities, buildings, things like that. Our pathways haven't gotten the money they've needed with the increased level of rain and storms that we've had, with trees uprooted, with volumes of water sort of taking over. Our pathway network is really, really suffering. So we're glad Gail Brewer just allocated $250,000 to bundle with 1.2 million in funding we have for Fort Tryon. And we also, I mentioned earlier, the 800,000 for Inwood. That's a great start. We have lots more needs, and these past two storms in particular have hit some of our park pathways hard, and they are almost impassable in some sections. And we've had staircases upheavals, and sidewalks is completely scoured out. So I can't impress upon you enough the need for more funding for pathways for public access through and to our parks.
Okay, thank you very much. Sally, you got a question?
Jennifer, I'm happy to hear you say that, because it seems like most of what's been directed from the council member has been directed towards sports. And we really are missing in terms of restoration, not only of our forest, but also of our waterfront. So I'm glad that you're advocating for the pathways work.
Sure. And in terms of the waterfront, we have $88 million that's already been allocated for the Harlem River Esplanade and the Harlem River Speedway. It is a major infrastructure project, and that sort of waterfront parkland there obviously connects to the Harlem River Drive. That was funded. That may be in the points of agreement for the Inwood rezoning. We have the 50 million for the Sherman Creek area, the Academy Street and the 208th Street Park. That's going to be next to Mad Equities and their new park. So we've got those waterfront projects going forward. And also Parks had the project that EDC had formerly been leading, the $22 million Dykeman waterfront, that's now in Park Shop. So that's going to be advancing, and we will have community input sessions for that.
And we could still use some funding probably north of the Dykeman Pier in terms of restoring the rest of the Hudson River.
Okay. So I will, in anticipation of our meeting next month, send out, re-forward the document from OMB and last year's rankings, capital and expense rankings, along with comments of what's happened since then, stuff that's gotten funded. That's amazing news about that bathroom in Fort Washington playground. I remember totally freezing my at the scoping meeting for that project on like December 29th, I want to say like 2009 or something.
Yes, I remember your Russian hat.
Yeah.
It was like December 31st. It had to happen in a certain calendar year, I think.
Yeah, it was like right at the end of December, and it was like 4 degrees, and we were talking about a bathroom then. So it's just like, on the one hand, it's really depressing that we're still talking about it. On the other hand, it's great that it's finally happening. And you know, for those of you who've been on the board for a while, you're used to seeing this. For people who have been around these kinds of projects, you know the kind of life that they have. For some of our newer members, Naima, Alexis, Etta, Danny, it's really amazing that, you know, there are times where 10 years later, we're still talking about stuff, but the good news is they do finally happen. And part of the reason why they do finally happen is we stay on it, and we are dogged in advocating for our community. So, you know, thanks to everybody, particularly Sally, who was very good at doggedly advocating for the projects that are important. All right, do we have additional questions? I'm seeing a hand up. Ah, Danny, you got a hand up.
Yeah, this is probably a question directed to you, more or less, or I don't know if you can answer it now, but more or less, how is it that the budgeting and the ranking thing works? I was in the Youth and Education committee yesterday. She kind of explained that. I'm pretty sure you'll probably be a little bit better at explaining it to me. I'm like still absorbing a lot of what's like happening.
So it's a lot to take in, but in a nutshell, we typically start with what we did last year. We look at last year's list, we remove things that have been completed. We take things that haven't been completed, but are now fully funded and in the pipeline, you know, that maybe they're in design, maybe they're in, you know, they're fully funded. Like what Jennifer just said about the Conectémonos basketball reconstruction at 186th Street, that's now fully funded. So we can take that off of our list of priorities because it's been funded, and we're gonna, instead of giving that a number, a ranked number, we're gonna give that designation of continuing support because it's funded. We will sometimes delete projects that are perhaps no longer relevant. There's no particular example of that that's coming to mind, but that has sometimes happened in prior years. And then we take that whole list and then we add, I generally go through the minutes of the last year and pull out any items that have been added when someone has said, hey, we need a project for this, or how come this, or this needs to get fixed, or whatever. And then we take that list and we rank it. How we did it when we met in person was, you know, with Post-it notes, and everybody would vote, and then we would count up whichever had the most Post-it notes and rank it that way.
Those were the days.
Yeah, that's really hard to do on Zoom. So I'm trying to figure out if there is a place where we can have an outdoor meeting so that we can be physically together and, you know, have an actual meeting in person with some kind of option to call in so that we can gather people's input online if they are not able to attend. But again, it's not always easy to find a venue, a suitable outdoor venue. So if people, first of all, show of hands or faces if we like that idea. Do we like that idea? Do we not like that idea? I'm seeing people liking that idea for the most part. Okay, so I will try and figure out how to make that work. I might not be able to, but hopefully I can. And also how to make sure that there's some kind of appropriate call-in function, since there are going to be some people who just still want to do the Zoom thing. But yeah, it's the capital process is a little bit overwhelming. It's overwhelming even for people who have been doing it for a long time. And it's certainly overwhelming for people for whom it's new. So if you feel overwhelmed by that, congratulations. You should. I would actually worry if you were like, I got this piece of cake, right? So I'm glad that you find it a little confusing, because it's confusing. It's a lot of detail. And I'm also happy to sort of walk you through it offline if you want to sit and chat over coffee and ask more detailed questions. I'm always here for that. Sally.
So when is the appropriate time for us to add things that are not included in last year's priorities? Is it tonight,
you
or
could-
the next meeting? Should we email them? I'm not sure what
So
to do.
I would say, we can give this another couple of minutes and talk about it now so that we have it on the record. Emailing it to me so that I can have it all gathered and throw it out at our next meeting is also fine. But if you've got a couple of items that you want to add, by all means, what are they?
Okay, I want monies devoted to waterfront restoration, things like oyster castles, similar to the oyster castles that are at Little Neck Bay, but also just preserving our shoreline. I would like, it came up wayfinding. I know Jennifer mentioned there was some money for wayfinding, but it looks like what we've had and had for years is fairly insufficient. And I just want to make sure that we identify that as an important priority. Also, it had come up.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just want to note that we have to be really careful about how we talk about wayfinding and think about wayfinding, because depending, it might be capital, it might be expense. So we're going to have to sort of flesh out what exactly kind of wayfinding we're looking for, and then have a conversation. We should actually, you and I should probably have a conversation with Jennifer to just figure out whether it's going to be capital or expense so that we can put it in the right place, because it's just going to bug us all if we have an idea about wayfinding, we identify it as a capital thing, and OMB is like, yeah, no, that's expense. So
the other thing that had come up, and this is not our committee, but it should be communicated, is the need for emergency call boxes. A lot of, with the crimes that took place in the park, a lot of times phones are the first thing to be taken. And so there needs to be a way of people reaching out, and I think we should mention that I guess that would be public safety.
yeah, that is actually one of the things that is on the list for public safety.
I think that we need to look carefully at the what's going on the peninsula in terms of the destruction of the salt marsh, and make sure that that is not totally destroyed. And there's a waterfront plan that has been done by Natural Areas Conservancy. We don't really even register in it. We've not had success, but I think that we need to focus on our wetlands, and that would be a capital project. In terms of expenses, I just wanted to correct something I think that Jennifer said. In terms of distinguishing park rangers from PEP officers, they are both peace officers. The difference is a PEP officer is focused on enforcement, whereas a park ranger is focused on education, but they can both issue summonses, et cetera. So they are both peace officers, as far as I understand it. I could be wrong, but with
but I think their orientation of rangers is not, their focus is not enforcement, whereas that is the intended focus of the Parks Enforcement Patrol.
The people that were attacked basically are advocating, the individuals are advocating for park rangers. They don't want more PEP officers. They're afraid that that will drive people out of the parks. I know in our.
Yes, I was on that call and I heard people, and I think, I don't know if you were on the call earlier, we're expecting several additional urban park rangers for Inwood, and I can stress to them that the community wants those increased rangers for Inwood. Right now, the urban park rangers do not dedicate rangers to a specific park. They're borough-wide, but I'm happy to take that back to that division and say that this committee raised it as a need.
Okay, and I know that in our expense priorities, we talk about more forestry. Would that also include funding that would go towards Natural Areas Conservancy in their work?
Yes.
I'm not sure, okay.
No, it would go to the Natural Resources Group of the Parks Department. If it's public, it would go to Natural Resources Group. That said, they coordinate with Natural Areas Conservancy, but Natural Areas Conservancy is private funds.
Okay.
In terms
I think we should advocate specifically for the kinds of things that are in the strategic trails maintenance plan with regard to the parks. The other thing that has come up is alternatives to the use of pesticides. This would be under expense. So I just want to raise again the idea of goats in Inwood Hill Park. I want to put that as a request that has been made by a number of community members continuously. Having that as an alternative to using glyphosate on harmful plants and invasives, which I know is permitted by the law, but it's still something that we would prefer not to have. What else? And
Just to clarify, we're gonna, if there's room on the agenda next month, we want to have Natural Resources Group come and report. In my conversations with them, they'd advocate for more people rather than goats, since people can select what gets eaten, what doesn't, or what gets removed and what doesn't. And people can also plant native plants in the place of the invasive. So just.
Yeah, I think we could have both. The other thing is I think that I would like to separate, we always say sort of extracurricular activities and we need more programming in the park. I think I would like to separate, we specifically need programming that is environmentally directed, because our ability to survive in the future is going to depend on training young kids in terms of stewardship and getting them engaged. So I just want to advocate specifically for stewardship, for programs like the natural areas classrooms and that kind of stuff. And I would like to, we always lump when we request more funding for PEP and Urban Park Rangers, we always lump them together, and I would rather separate those requests. So that's sort of off the top of my head right now. And obviously I still want we're still advocating for community garden in Northern Manhattan.
Right. Okay, so just, I love all of those priorities and I agree with all of those things. I do want to say that one of the things that is really the hardest thing that we do as community board members is look at these priorities, because there is not a single one of our priorities that we already had, or a single one of the priorities that you've identified that I think is a terrible idea that we have no business spending taxpayer dollars on. I think they're all important. And that is about 40 separate or 50 separate capital and expense items. To that number is added a fairly long list from literally every single other committee, of which there are 9. So one of the things that we have to do as a board is whittle down our whole list of priorities so that we can submit to OMB 25 expense items and 40 capital items. That's it. So while I do not disagree, and I don't think anybody on this committee disagrees with the importance of any of these things, the reality is the reason why we lump things together is so that we can get them on the list at all. Because we can't be submitting 150 items to OMB from Community Board 12, because in addition to our however many items there are, we're one of 51 boards. OMB, it's too many items. So I hear you, but we do have to be judicious.
Yeah, and I can put some of them together. I worry that we are not paying attention in the midst of like what happened with Sandy, what happened 2 weeks ago. Our environment does not get the attention it needs from this community board. And that is putting us at serious risk. And we keep saying, oh, let's build another playground, let's build another ball field. Meanwhile, we're destroying our environment. And I'm glad that Jennifer's advocating for the trails maintenance, et cetera, but we need to take a serious look at how compromised our natural areas are and increasingly are not getting attention. And it's not the kind of thing that Udonis Rodriguez and whoever succeeds them will fund, because it's not sexy, but it's critical to our ability to survive and to not sacrifice Manhattan's last forest and salt marsh. And that's what's happening right now.
Yep, I hear you. Naima?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Liz. Liz, I know you mentioned earlier that you'd be happy to, I know you kind of mentioned it, just putting it out there. I would like to sign up and ask if we can actually schedule maybe a lunch date or breakfast, or I don't drink coffee, so maybe we can do a smoothie or something like that to just sit down and really go over this process, because I did join last October. And so I would love to just learn from you a little bit more about the intricacies of this process before we enter it. So I would like to join Daniel and you.
Let's schedule that offline. Let's start up a text thread or an email thread. Let's figure out a mutually convenient time.
All right, thank you.
You bet. Daryl.
Yeah, hi. Just a reminder, and you've probably already considered this, but just making sure that for next month's meeting, you're not scheduling any advocacy groups to come and speak that may also have interest in the budgeting process.
Got it. Yeah, at the moment.
To unfairly balance the normal process the way it
Correct.
should work. Yes.
Totally hear that. Totally hear that. And yeah, good luck with your own budgeting process with housing and human services.
I think there was only like 10 or 12 items from last year. So
we totally have the most items far and away, followed by traffic and transportation, because there's like this stretch of road, that stretch of road, this subway stop, that subway stop. And then there are others that have fewer. So, all right, without, do we have any other items of new business? Hearing none, I will, Nobles, I turn it over to you.
Motion to adjourn?
Is there a second? Okay, this meeting is adjourned at 8:50 p.m. Thank
All
you
right.
all
Thank
very
you.
much. And see you hopefully in person next month.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Night all.
Bye, everybody.
And Paola, don't forget to send me the attendance and the chat.
Welcome, Danny.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ally.
Shout out to you, Paula, for all your work. Thank you.
You the
You're welcome.
best. Bye.